All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a pro trader's 6-week journey. It's kind of like a high wire act, really. They made a bet, a big one, on calm in the super chaotic crypto market. And we've got the playbook, day by day, of how they tried to ride out the storm when it inevitably hit. So, this really gets to the heart of it for a lot of pro traders. And to find out how it all works, we're going to follow one trader's real money portfolio over 6 pretty intense weeks. We're talking wins, losses, and some really critical on-the-fly adjustments. Okay, so first up, what's the actual bet here? At its core, this is a bet on stability. It's a wager that the market is just gonna stay calm. So the official name for this is shorting volatility. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like you're an insurance company. The trader sells these things called options, which are basically policies that only pay out if the market makes a huge move, right? So if the market just stays calm, stays predictable, nothing happens. And the trader, they just get to pocket the payment, what's called the premium. Simple as that, in theory. All right, so here's the timeline. The whole thing kicks off on November 6th. The starting stake, a quarter of a Bitcoin. The plan is simple. Sell those options we just talked about. But, and this is absolutely critical, with a safety net. It's something called a delta hedge to manage the risk. We're going to get into exactly what that is in just a minute. But first, for the first few weeks, well, everything went just perfectly. And this right here, this is the dream scenario for this strategy. In those early, quiet days of December, the market was just flat. No drama, no big swings. So those options the traders sold, they just quietly lost their value, exactly as planned. And the portfolio, it just ticked up. A nice, small, consistent profit. Looked almost easy, right? But come on, markets don't stay calm forever. Of course not. So let's get to the first real test, a rally. Let's see how this whole setup handles a big one-way move. Yeah, that calm, it didn't last long. On December 4th, the market just woke up. It absolutely exploded to life, kicking off this powerful rally that just sent prices flying. So the price just blasts past $41,600. And this is a huge moment. Remember, the trader bet this wouldn't happen. So on the surface, it looks like their options are about to get crushed. We're talking a massive, maybe even a catastrophic loss. But, and this is the really cool part, this is where that hedge comes in and saves the day. You see, while the options were losing money, the hedge was built to do the exact opposite. It was actually gaining money. So the loss on one side was almost perfectly canceled out by the profit on the other. And the result? The whole portfolio stayed stable. Incredible. And look, the trader's own words here just sum it up perfectly. This wasn't some lucky break. This was risk management by design. That hedge faced its first big test, and it passed with flying colors. It worked exactly like it was supposed to. Okay, so the hedge worked, but that big rally created a new, kind of subtle problem. The cost of just keeping that hedge in place was starting to add up. So let's look at the really clever way the trader adjusted their tools to deal with this. All right, so the main tool for their hedge was something called perpetual futures. They're super easy to trade, but they have this little hidden cost called a funding rate. Now, during a big rally like this one, that funding rate becomes a fee you have to pay over and over and over again. It's like a slow bleed. So, to stop that bleeding, the trader made a really smart move. They shifted the hedge over to dated futures, a different kind of tool, but one that crucially has no daily funding cost. And how did they make this switch? They used this really elegant tool called a future spread. What it does is let you sell the old thing and buy the new thing at the exact same time, all in one single order. It's a total pro move. Why? Because it pretty much eliminates the risk of the price moving against you while you're trying to make the trade. All right, so the portfolio survived the rally. But now it's about to face its true nemesis. The thing the strategy fears most. A totally chaotic market that's swinging violently in both directions. And then, on December 11th, the nightmare scenario hits. First, the market just tanks, crashes 10%. To keep the portfolio balanced, the trader has no choice. They're forced to sell near the bottom. But then, the market does a complete 180. It violently reverses and rockets back up, forcing them to buy back in, yeah, you guessed it, near the top. This kind of move, this whiplash, it's pure kryptonite for a short volatility trader. I mean, think about it. You're literally being forced to sell low and then buy high, all just to keep your risk from blowing up. This constant adjusting at the absolute worst prices, well, that has a name, hedging loss. And it is a surefire way to bleed money. And you can see that hedging loss right here on the bottom line. The portfolio takes its first real hit, a drop of 0.003 Bitcoin. And this just perfectly illustrates the built-in danger of the strategy, right? It can survive a nice, orderly one-way move, but when real chaos hits, it really struggles. So, faced with all this chaos and with the holidays just around the corner, the trader decided, you know what? It's time to pack it in. Time to close the books. So after 6 weeks, what was the final verdict? So here it is, the whole 6-week journey at a glance. We started with some easy profits in the calm. Then it got tested by that big rally. After that, it got battered by a true volatility storm. And finally, on December 22nd, all positions were closed. So the final tally? A profit of about 1.6%. Now, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like a huge home run, but let's put it in perspective. This portfolio survived a 25% price rally and one of those violent whiplash events. The fact that it finished in the green at all, that's actually a pretty solid result. But this leads us to what is maybe the most important question of this whole explainer. Was all that work really worth it? All those complex hedges, the future spreads, all that effort. Would it have just been better to sell the options and, just hope for the best? Well, this table gives us the answer, and it's pretty stark. The trader actually went back and calculated what would have happened with no hedging at all. And that unhedged portfolio, it would have suffered a major loss during that first big rally. Our actual hedged portfolio, though, had a much, much smoother ride and completely dodged that bullet. The hedge, my friends, was literally the difference between a small profit and a total wipeout. So what's the big takeaway here? I think it's this. Hedging isn't really about trying to make more money. It's about survival. It's what turns a pure gamble into a managed risk. Think of it like a boxer. It protects you from that one big knockout punch from a directional move, even if you're still vulnerable to a flurry of quick jabs from that whiplash action. The goal isn't just profit. It's about staying in the game. It's about surviving to fight another day. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? In a world with markets this volatile, this unpredictable, maybe the whole definition of winning has changed. Maybe it's not about swinging for the fences anymore. Maybe the biggest win of all is just successfully navigating the storm and coming out on the other side ready for the next one.